Welcome to Toffee Blue View, your source for all things Everton. I am Gerry. I am joined by two guys who I'm glad they don't go away. I'm glad they're always omnipresent, always around. Max and Terry. Guys, West Ham preview. We will be traveling to London for this one. So, yeah, we're going to the Olympic Stadium. Should be dreary. Right now, West Ham are 9th in the table, though. They're ahead of us in the table. That's a reality. Let's take a deep breath and deal with that. They got 42 points. They're 12, 6, and 13. Their previous 3 matches, 4-3 over Huddersfield, 2-0 loss to Cardiff, and 2-0 win over Newcastle. I'm just going to rattle off the possible starters because this is nuts, the people who could possibly be in. Fabianski, who is actually a far stronger keeper than I think people give him credit for. Fredericks at right back, Diop, Balbuena, Cresswell, and then Declan Rice, who's been playing for England lately, which has been a little controversial. Declan Rice rolling in the center, Snodgrass possibly on the right, Noble and Lanzini in the center, Felipe Anderson on the left, and Chicharito, the little P, possibly starting up front. You could see Agbana in there. We know Agbana well because I think Martinez wrote him a heartfelt letter when we, trying to get him to calm down. Yeah, bad memories.
Thank you for being gentleman.
What was that?
Thank you for being gentleman.
Yeah, gentleman. Yeah. Always a bridesmaid. Zabaleta could show up. Nasri doing little drip doctors. Antonio, Arnautovic, Lucas Perez. They have a lot of people that could be coming into this game. So we'll go into danger men in a second. Terry, what do you foresee from this West Ham squad? How they're playing right now? How do you, where do you feel like we're going to see some problems?
Well, they've got some really, really good attacking players, so we're going to have to be really on it offensively. I mean, the home game was just a lesson for Kenny and Holgate and their football and development because they both got completely bullied by Arnautovic and Felipe Anderson on the day. Those two players are probably still the biggest threats for me. We've got to be careful that we don't concede silly goals and give away silly free kicks like we have done across the season because unfortunately with the injuries and international break, I think Yerry Mina, I think the back four that played against Chelsea would have been our back four for the rest of the season had it not been for Mina's injury. And I would have preferred, to have seen Mina on the pitch against someone like Arnautovic, not just for the size aspect, but also for the one-on-one type position, one-on-one type thing. I think Mina's got a lot more about him for that type of thing than any of the other centre-backs, including Keane and Zuma. But Keane and Zuma have got to do better than Keane and Holgate did at the start of the season. And Coleman has got to be on his game because Felipe Anderson is one of the better players in the whole league. I think he's been one of the signings of the season. And we've got to try and hit them with our attacking players. I think this is going to be a big game of attack versus attack, and we'll see who comes out on top. But I don't know. They worry me, West Ham. They've got some really good forward players.
Max, you think this is a possibility where they may go with speed on the outside? I know I mentioned Snodgrass on one side. It seems like, wouldn't that be a decent play?
Well, if you think about it, in that reverse fixture, our biggest problem was containing the likes of Yarmolenko, Arnautovic, Anderson, who just seemed to, turn us inside out in the wide back positions. So I was just looking at the head-to-heads before the recording, and do you remember when they knocked us out of the FA Cup on penalties when Adrian scored the winner? We were unbeaten in our last 15 against West Ham before that game. I don't know, because West Ham's another one of those clubs, almost similar to Watford, that have seemed to conjured up a phony rivalry with Everton, almost trying to compete for this, 7th best spot, best of the rest label. But I know obviously they've got the transition to the London Stadium, which are it's a grand stage. I'm made up. I'm not going on the weekend. I went last season, and it was like trying to climb Everest, trying to find your seat. But I don't know. I'm not full of confidence when it comes to watching Everton play in London, because I don't think we've got the best track record, and particularly against West Ham. I think Romelu Lukaku is our all-time top scorer when it comes to playing against West Ham. So fingers crossed, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, or who knows? Obviously, with us, brace and during the international break, maybe we'll see Tosin given a run. But I'd like to think that Chelsea, obviously, that for me at least, that Chelsea result was Silva's biggest achievement as Everton manager so far. And you could argue that the international breaks kind of swiped our momentum, particularly with like the injuries like you listed. But fingers crossed we can carry on with that momentum.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about our front four. I feel like we all have a good idea of where we're going with the front four. Curious to see if we're going to see, Gomez and Gay again, or if we're going to see Schneiderlin slip in there. Hard to say. I feel like he's going to go with Gomez, but, never know. Depends. If he saw more in training, it seems like Silva really puts an emphasis on training, which is why you haven't seen as much Lookman this season. He's just inferring that Lookman has been pretty inconsistent. But it's the back which I think all of us, we have a pretty good idea of what they're going to do. It's just a matter of whether or not Zuma was already starting. We feel good about Zuma. We feel okay about Keane. I'm trying to remember who put the stat online on Twitter that Keane gives up more goals through open play rather than on set plays, and Yerry Mina gives up more the other way around, basically. And now that I think about it, I can actually see that a little bit. So that's a concern for me, because they actually have a few players that are pretty good in the air, and they have a few players who can play a dead ball or two. So this brings back that old concern of oh hell, every time they have any kind of kick anywhere in our half, we just start grabbing onto things and bracing and saying, okay, here it comes again.
Yeah, I've just having a little look at the league standings. Yeah, a win could propel us into 8th place, and I think if that is to be, that Europa League qualification does become a real possibility. And then that opens the can of worms. Is it a hindrance rather than a help? Because when does the season start? Like early July, or later on in July. And
I think any kind of America trip, which would ever be in the cards, would maybe not be in the cards then. You know what I mean? Let's get to Europe before we start debating the merits of it. That's fair.
Look at it, it's harder than any of the teams we're competing with. And you said it before about this phony rivalry that they've sort of drummed up between West Ham and Everton, and Watford and Everton, and going forward it'll probably soon be Wolves and Everton's. That's our fault, because we were in a different stratosphere to any of those clubs for a long time, and just because we've slid back so much in recent years, that now we are very much in the same bracket as Watford and as West Ham, when we used to be in the same bracket as Arsenal and Liverpool back then and whatnot. So it's just a matter for us to push ourselves back above those teams. But right now we certainly can't say we are, because if you look at our squad, you look at West Ham's squad and Watford's squad, you can't say that we're much better. We should be, but we're not.
If you look at our performances, I think that's been one of the most disheartening things about this season for me, is when we've come up against those teams, we fell short, and we fell well short. Beaten by Watford, Leicester. Who else have we been beat by? Who have we been in and around? Drop points against Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, teams like that. It's because I know Terry made the point in an earlier podcast that we really need to be looking in the short term now to establish ourselves as we are that best of the rest, and we need to start finding a way into maybe gate crashing the top 6. I think that's still a few years away yet. However, these are the games where you can put the distance in between those teams.
Thing is, though, it's never too early to start. We've beat a top 6 team last game, which we hadn't done for a long time. So beat West Ham, and then you've sorted that for this season as well. It's about not letting those little runs, become ingrained, because we've lost the last 2 games against West Ham. But as you said before, recently we had a 15-game unbeaten streak against them. It's like, need to start building those up again, and West Ham have got some good players, but they're wildly inconsistent. You don't know which West Ham you're going to get. You could get the West Ham who shipped 3 goals against you, but you could get one who put 4 past you, like they did with Huddersfield. It's just they're not dissimilar to us in terms of on the pitch, because they've got a bit of a patchwork team with some really good players, but some problems stitching a team together, and fans who sometimes get on their own players' backs and stuff. They're not that dissimilar to us in a lot of regards, but I don't know. I think if it was at Goodison, I'd be a lot more confident going off the back of that Chelsea game. I just think it's the away game thing again. Just makes me lack confidence, but they need to build up. The club needs to build up supporter confidence in these games again. Start winning them regularly.
Well, I mean, it's the good news is we're going to like a non-atmosphere. So, in terms of like that stadium being loud, it's not. You know what I mean? Like when you actually listen to that, especially, it's just the acoustics of that place don't really make it conducive to being like a really like intimidating place. I think the most intimidating, I don't know.
True, but for me, being there in the flesh and going off our last performance, yeah, you can put that down to Sam Allardyce. Yeah, you can put that down to West Ham wanting to get one over them on Sam Allardyce, which was probably the propelling force. However, that was still Everton at the Olympic Stadium, and what we've seen so far hasn't been good enough.
It's hard to. Yeah. I'll be curious to see which team we see this week of ours.
Fingers crossed, the one that that second half against Chelsea. Or we've got a few omissions due to injury, which is entirely the reason why I detest an international break. But still,
yeah,
the players that are deputising surely have enough quality.
Yeah, and we're getting to the point now though where we start before every game we're kind of like, hope we see the team that we want to see. You know what I mean? It's just because you could see, the one against Wolves, were just uninspiring, or you'll see the one against Chelsea. So or the first half against Chelsea or the second half against Chelsea. You know what I mean? Like which one? It's frustrating. And you guys are right. West Ham probably dealing with the same thing. So this whole thing will be a crapshoot. All right. What's the prediction? Max, what's the score?
2-1 Everton.
2-1 Everton. Terry.
Snap 2-1 Everton. I'm going to go with 2-1 Everton.
2-1 Everton. I'm going to say 1-0 Everton. I'm somehow picking a clean sheet. Sorry. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I am. All right. I do feel like Pickford has picked some things up since. Oh, it was the Newcastle game that was so awful. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, but he's been pretty focused since then. So give him some credit for maturity on that. Okay, so I'm a little concerned about the fact that we're all picking a win. But oh well, sometimes we're right. All right, so I guess that's it for our West Ham preview. Right, guys? Anything else? Yeah. That's it for our West Ham preview. If you've been digging our videos, please subscribe to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel. We sincerely appreciate it. If you want more Terry, well, that's easy. You can just keep an eye on his Twitter timeline. He'll tell you when he's going to be on the Liverpool Echo fan jury. or you could just send him a message and say, "Hey Terry, let's hang out." Look how willing he is to do that. Super willing. All right, so and Max, you'll probably just see Max out anyway. You know what I mean? Because he's always all over town. It's his thing. Keep an eye on his Twitter. He'll tell you where he's gonna be, when he's gonna be there. But additionally, he'll be on the Toffee Blues website, the brand spanking new, finally coutoured Toffee Blues website. So keep an eye out for Max there. Gentlemen, let's move on to talk about a man with an afro. Bye. Oh, hold on. A man who used to have an afro. Bye.